How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I want to start here purposely. I said yesterday that I will be putting out a series of videos about Biden and Harris, but not just yet. And this message that I'm giving is to some ignorant ass, whoever these ignorant ass so-called people deem theyself, or respectfully the people that are new to the channel. So I'm talking about two separate groups. Some ignorant folks and some folks that I don't deem ignorant on the true royal family and true royal. I don't give a damn about Trump. I don't give a damn about Biden and Harris. Actually, these two are extremely dangerous because we have a record, a plethora of negative shit that they have in place to affect the royal family and really directed towards our kings. But they're attacking us all now as their kingdom fall before their eyes. So to clear up any confusion, I don't vote at all. I have voted in the past, and I did vote for Obama the first round. I ain't gonna front. But just to clear that up, I had some folks come at me real ignorant, and I thank y'all for taking us down. The mods, y'all been doing a wonderful job. Thank you. And just to let the mobs know, when you delete someone with a crazy comment, we make the final approval behind the scenes. It doesn't indicate who got rid of who, all right? So don't trip off of that at all. If you feel offended by anything someone say, give them the pimp hand. I rarely, because when I read it, I rarely put it back, all right? I rarely put it back. But there are some people who have been very respectful that are new, so you can understand what's going on over here. I don't support any of these demons, because all they ever have done is continue to keep doing what this dying system has done since the day we have came in contact with them. And, you know, what's frustrating to a content creator where people put words in your mouth. And I'm tired of folks throwing up in my face their record. I'm tired of folks assuming that I'm supporting them. I'm tired of folks saying shit I simply did not say. And it's pissing me off. So this is where I need the moderators. They will give you that pin hand. I have only one rule on this channel. Do not converse with the enemy. Get rid of them. Don't waste your royal energy conversing with them, because they are doomed, you know, and they know it. So they come to our channels and taunt. Then they got these coons, this, you know, hanging on for dear life. Go to those type of channels that support that shit. I don't support any of it. So I've gotten it clear. I thank my new subscribers immensely. Thank you. But I know when you come in new to a channel, you may not know what a person is on. So sometimes you have to let folks know. This is how I view things with my lenses. Now, another thing. This is not a channel where you have to agree with me wholeheartedly. You don't have to agree with me at all. And there's many that's been with me day one. We have difference of agreements. I don't get rid of them. I don't ridicule them. Sometimes I'll read it and see where I got it wrong. So this ain't that type of channel. This ain't the type of channel where you disrespect the royal family. That is why I greet you the way that I greet you. Some people are irritated with me saying royal family. People are irritated with me saying my kings, my queens. Now I deem our children royals, gifts directly from Yah. So we got that all cleared up. And right now, I flatly refuse to focus on them two, because we have 4 years, if they can make it, to drag their ass, because we know already what they on. Their ultimate job is to try to nurse us back to sleep without doing shit. And then when the next 4 years come, they're going to be begging for our vote in the royal family in the same repetitive shit. These two together combined are extremely dangerous. I live in Kamala country. She left a trail of shit. And you'll be astounded you didn't see a great deal of support for Kamala. If you notice, I also live in Pelosi country. And I didn't even see her support Kamala at all so far. Maybe I didn't miss it, but I ain't feeling her energy at all. So we know these are tricksters, lie, stab, and cheat. It's all about jockeying for power, all right, and upholding white supremacy in a dying system. So I have gotten that clear, and now I'm going to take the family on a journey. I do have one bonus video. It's a little bit long, but it just wraps up everything as I go along here. So let's start here. Okay. Trump. We know that Trump depends on people to do damn near everything for him. And now he's ego tripping like he always do and won't properly transfer power. And I earnestly did not know the depths and levels of all of this. And as the days go along, I'm seeing how extreme. And you notice there's always extremism when it comes to Trump. Like I said, either you're going to extremely like him or you're going to extremely hate him. So it goes from one pendulum to the next. There's nothing that's balancing these scales or anything, not coming into the middle. So we got this man-child playing a very dangerous game. And we must remember that the world is watching America like they usually do, because this in America on the world stage, this is considered the land of milk and honey. There is many have strived to get over here, but it ain't like that no more. Folks getting their education from America and going back and dealing with their immediate situation. And isn't it ironic that the countries that Trump deem a unquote shithole, and he looks down on them and look at them as less than, that they are dealing with coronavirus exceptionally well. So they consider this country a superpower too as well, and we're supposed to be advanced on technology, which I continue to call it antiquated, all right? Antiquated. We have technology that far surpass this antiquated stuff, all right? They did not invent this technology. That statement is true when they say nothing is new under the sun. Absorb that, my royal family. So this technology is not new, but it's enough to get our voices out and talk to our kings and queens and royals on the 4 corners of the earth. So as the days go along, let me see what we got here. Today is the 16th. And okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So now we're in the 14th day of his antics and shenanigans, and he refused to concede. He don't want to transfer power and all these things. All right. Well, as time go along, people can't help but start feeling negative by his actions. counts. But the first phase of people that are feeling these things are the judges that keep giving these frivolous lawsuits. You know, I feel like Trump's legal team is just playing him. A lot of them have stepped away. It's about getting a quick little paycheck. But, you know, the burden of proof is on you, Trump. You saying that, you know, they rigged this election. Millions of people, you know, got together and said we're going to do a fast one. A lot of folks can't hold water like you, Trump. So you expecting the courts to do what? Ain't it ironic that Trump's team worked really hard to put as many white young males on a bench? And I can imagine some of them then encountered this bullshit. And so now every day, these judges is getting more and more frustrated with them. So let's get into this first video.
President Trump has baselessly declared victory in the 2020, despite millions of votes remaining uncounted and many key states still not projected.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
But the race isn't over. Votes are still being counted across much of the nation, and there are millions of mail-in and absentee ballots that have yet to be counted.
We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
They're not going to have any success in stopping the vote counting right now. The only success that they may have down the road is in assessing which votes will ultimately end up counting.
The president also began filing lawsuits in multiple states, aiming to halt ballot counting and claiming that poll watchers were not given access to observe the process. State officials have told ABC News repeatedly that votes will be counted in accordance with state law and it will take time. And no local officials have given indication of anything wrong or problematic with the ballots they are seeing. So why is the president questioning the legitimacy of the election?
Litigation has been a major component of the campaign strategy for in recent weeks and months of the Trump campaign, and I think it's pretty clear based on the remarks that we just heard that if anything is just going to kick into higher gear. But I do think it's important to make clear there is no basis in law for a claim that counting must stop simply because it sounds like the president likes how the numbers look.
It's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over.
Experts agree there will be a delay in the election's results, but this is no cause for alarm. So why is the president falsely declaring victory so quickly?
Donald Trump has primarily used conspiracy theory rhetoric when he talks about the election in 2020. Conspiracy rhetoric is a self-sealing narrative, which means that logic and evidence are not allowed to count against the conspiracy. And if you say, well, no, actually the evidence shows that this doesn't happen very often at all. There is no mail fraud, for example. The conspiracy says they're hiding the truth from you.
In recent weeks, President Trump has ramped up his rhetoric on voter fraud and focused much of his attention on mail-in ballots.
Because what they're doing is a hoax with the ballots. They're sending out tens of millions of ballots, unsolicited, not where they're being asked, but unsolicited. And that's a hoax. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
I think it is clear that there is no evidence that widespread or systematic absentee voter fraud is a real phenomenon. The Conservative Heritage Foundation actually took a look at this recently and found that over 20 years and over 200 million mail-in ballots cast, they could only identify 143 instances of absentee ballot fraud. So it's just not a problem at any scale. And when it comes to mail-in ballots, they do have the mechanisms in place to check the ballots that are being returned to ensure their accuracy. President Trump has largely polarized the issue of absentee voting. He has cast doubt about voting by mail for months. And I think that message has resonated with his voters.
It was projected that Democrats were more than twice as likely to use mail-in ballots as Republicans this election season. This means that on election night, preliminary numbers for many states skewed Republican. And as the mail-in votes are counted, the results could shift more Democratic.
There's been a lot of talk about how the election outcome will be delegitimized or called into question if we don't have all of the votes counted on election day, which is really a fallacy. When elections are called, whether they be for the House or the Senate and in the presidential race, they are called based on the vote that is already recorded, the number of outstanding votes to come, and a set of typically provisional ballots that still have to be counted. No one is elected on election night.
One way of understanding Trump's rhetoric is to think about it as a paralipsis, which is the rhetorical figure that can be understood colloquially as, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. It allows him to say two things at once. You know, I'm not saying the election is rigged, but the election is rigged. I'm not saying that they cheat, but they cheat.
I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
Donald Trump is an expert at weaponizing communication. He's constantly using threats of force or intimidation, like saying he's going to sign up poll watchers, that make you feel like, you know, things are really scary.
By the way, when you see shenanigans, please report it to your authorities, okay? The real authorities. They're watching, and the authorities are watching.
This isn't the first time Donald Trump has questioned the legitimacy of a U.S. election. In 2016, when he won the Electoral College but lost the popular vote, Trump claimed without evidence that millions of votes were cast illegally.
He's preemptively doing that in 2020. So he is laying the groundwork for an argument that says, I didn't lose, they cheated.
This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it. So I just want to thank you.
A close election could allow more room to challenge the results and call for ballot recounts, similar to the Bush-Gore presidential race in 2000.
I think what he's trying to do is prepare the nation, again, sort of setting the groundwork for these arguments that he's going to have later, to say, you know, the Supreme Court should decide whether or not we should continue to count these ballots.
They want to try and rig the election with all these mail-in ballots.
Democracy in the United States depends on free and fair elections and hinges on the peaceful transfer of power.
When people raise concerns about the peaceful transfer of power, it's disconcerting that candidates would question that.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster. Get rid of the ballots and we'll have a very peaceful, there won't be a transfer, frankly, there'll be a continuation.
Whether Trump means it or not, either way, it's anti-democratic because it throws the whole electoral process into doubt, and it uses compliance-gaining strategies rather than persuasion to try to convey his message.
Much can happen between November and December to legitimize the outcomes, to clarify any possible errors, and to show that the United States has a vigorous electoral system that can produce elections that have some level of legitimacy for the majority of American people.
All right, my royal family, let me shut that down. You know what I was thinking about, my royal family? This has been on my mind heavily, is that both sides cheat. And Trump, let's look at this knucklehead for a minute. Trump reminds me of like that child that cried wolf. And he really did it exclusively to himself. So there's some things that he is lacking. He lacks political experience. We know he's a narcissist. He's illiterate to some extent. And with him having a lack of, and also he only trusts his own judgment, and actually he exhausts himself because of not having trust. And you got you can utilize experts around you, but no, he trusts himself. And then when it doesn't work out, then he got to find someone to just shit on. So there is things that Trump has spoke truth on, but he done told over 4,000 lies being a president, that one time where you're telling the gospel truth, nobody believes nothing that come out of your mouth based on with your continuous lies. And I'm not saying that that this election was rigged in such a way that millions of votes were stolen from him. So now let's go back here. So these suckers, and him being a loser, they rather dig their heels in and go along with the latter, because there are people like him that can't face truth. See, I'm the type of person, you can't sell me a fantasy. You got to give it to me raw. I might feel some kind of way, but I don't give a damn about those feelings. At least I got the gospel truth, and I'll process it the way that I'm going to process it, because eventually I'm going to find out, and usually women, when you speak of relationships, and if you're in a relationship that is based on deceit and stuff, us women are great detectives. Some of the stuff we don't even have to make an effort. It just presents itself. So Trump flatly refuses to look at his own behavior, and that's what a narcissist do. He has to keep himself in a certain state. But these things that he is doing, coming out of this, losing his power, is extremely dangerous. Like I said, I've been learning more and more about transferring power. And I was saying to my husband earlier today, I said, wow, as Biden and Kamala picked their cabinet, actually, the people that, they're going to be picked, they need to be at those briefings every day. Or if they're not sitting with Trump, and Trump don't go over them briefings, and I get into that a little bit deeper, they should at least have those briefings presented to them, because it's transferring power. So you got to work hand in hand. And I see why they got that block of time where it's just smooth. It's not even felt at all that everything is going smoothly. They're going to show you the ins and outs. And it should be all about keeping, unquote, America safe, and being transparent with that and accepting of that. And so what he does is he, signals to the people, some of the people that's digging their heels in, being close to him, like, don't do anything. But when you process what he is saying, you're putting this country more in danger, because we're being watched on the world stage. We shouldn't even be talking about this stuff. Everything got to be done in the damn open. You don't hear other countries putting their business in the street like that. That's the arrogance of America. But I have been saying day one down there that when Trump stepped in, I could see where there was a lot of security breach day one, and this fool don't even realize that there are top secret paperwork that he don't even receive, because this sucker subject to put it on Twitter. And this sucker is even talking right now about wanting to release top secret information, but this is all about his immediate situation, because we know what he got to face. Now, let's continue on. We're going to get this a little bit into Biden. So but it's all related to what I'm talking about.
News has now projected the winner in all 50 states, Joe Biden winning 306 electoral votes to President Trump's 232, and ahead by more than 5.5 million in the popular vote. But President Trump is still not conceding, and former President Barack Obama is sounding alarm about that in a new interview. Our Mary Bruce is in Washington, has the latest on that. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, it's now been over a week since it became clear that Biden would be the next president, and there is now a growing chorus of voices warning that the president's refusal to admit defeat is damaging to our country and our democracy. And just as it seemed that President Trump was beginning to recognize reality that he lost, he's now taking another step backwards. As President Trump refuses to concede, this morning, former President Obama is urging Trump to live up to his own motto and put America first.
My advice to President Trump is if you want, at this late stage in the game, to be remembered as somebody who put country first, it's time for you to do the same thing.
In his first interview since the election, Obama says Trump is denying reality, describing his behavior as a danger to democracy.
When your time is up, then it is your job to put the country first and think beyond your own ego and your own interests and your own disappointments.
Over the weekend, the president seemed to recognize Joe Biden's victory, briefly acknowledging on Twitter Sunday Biden won the election, only to walk it back. Trump tweeting, "I concede nothing. We have a long way to go." The president continues to falsely insist he actually won, claiming without any evidence that the election was somehow rigged against him. But nearly every lawsuit his team has filed has been thrown out. While Trump vows to keep waging his uphill legal battle against the results, thousands of his supporters this weekend flooded the streets of the Capitol, rallying behind the president and flocking to his motorcade as Trump, in a nod of approval, did a drive-by on his way to his Virginia golf club. As night fell, tensions rose, Trump supporters clashing with counter-protesters, leading to at least 20 arrests. And as COVID cases surge, the president is all but ignoring the virus. He hasn't attended a meeting of his coronavirus task force since the beginning of the summer. Dr. Anthony Fauci now urging the Trump team to work with the incoming Biden administration.
It's almost like passing a baton in a race. You don't want to stop and then give it to somebody. You want to just essentially keep going. And that's what transition is. So it certainly would make things more smoothly if we could do that.
Biden's team is being blocked from sensitive information and coordinating with federal agencies. His new chief of staff warning it could hinder preparations for a vaccine.
Our experts need to talk to those people as soon as possible so nothing drops in this change of power we're going to have on January 20th.
Now, the concern here, of course, is that without a smooth transition, it could impact or hinder the rollout of a vaccine. Biden and his team are trying to get ahead of this. This week, they'll be meeting with some of the vaccine producers. And today, Biden and Kamala Harris will be speaking out about their plan for an economic recovery. They are trying to forge ahead, even as their hands are tied. Amy?
All right, Mary Bruce, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, my radio family. So, something I wanted to, I had got a pop-up on my other computer, because y'all know I work off it too. And Trump is basically now saying, because 2 different pharmaceutical companies have came up with a vaccine, and he talking about, well, that was on my watch. You know, he picks and chooses because he always want to give the illusion that, you know, all good things that has happened in America has came essentially from him, you know. And you got some people that are so delusional, back to these, where is these suckers at, that, you know, they fine with that. And I can't get past how these people out here marching. You see people, you know, you see some people with masks, you see some people without. So don't be surprised. You know, these numbers that are coming out are really, really alarming and stuff. And so anyhow, let's get into this bonus video. I might stop a bit because this video is about 13 minutes long, but in this bonus video, it gives us, in the shortest amount of time, it gives us even more of a clearer picture of these, you know, the stuff that's going on. Because like I said, for me personally, I learned some things, and I love learning new things because I never ever took the time, like I said before, to even think about how that whole process work of transferring a power and me researching it and everything, because I just don't go by what I hear. I'm a person, I have to go dig in research, because it's amazing what you hear and what you read sometimes be totally two different things. That's like I said, I never get offended when somebody send me a link to something or email me something, because y'all helping me to gain better understanding. So let's get into now the bonus video. And like I said, yeah, it's a little over 13 minutes, but it really helps us to understand this whole process.
Is now projecting the outcome of all 50 states in the presidential election, and while President-elect Joe Biden leads with 306 electoral votes, President Trump is doubling down on his refusal to concede. Writing in all caps last night, the president tweeted that he won the election. The tweet was quickly flagged by Twitter. It followed a series of posts where Mr. Trump continued to push claims of a rigged election, despite there being no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Meanwhile, over the weekend, the president did seem to acknowledge defeat, giving some hope that the White House...
Let's hold that for a second. So, we know when a person is putting capital letters, they screaming and hollering and ranting and raving and everything. And I know some of y'all starting to notice it. It won't be too much longer that Trump will be on Twitter, because, they're even sick of him, and maybe they had fears of taking him off and, going along and getting along and all this kind of stuff. And what got me was when Trump came out and spoke the other day, CNN busted the crack of his ass. I mean, they went for his throat. And I mean, they was not playing at all. So can you imagine what the whole Trump family is going to be receiving? Because they're not going to get that welcome committee, because they have burned many bridges, and they want the Trumps out of D.C. You ain't coming back, Trump, in the next 4 years. It's a lot of damage that can be done in the next 4 years. And his base will continue to dwindle and dwindle, and they have that same narcissist attitude like him. So when we start seeing this stuff, what they're gonna do was like, oh, he hid this from us, we didn't know, to not be so embarrassed being a staunch supporter. It was like, well, I believe that A, B, C, and D happened. No, we gonna drag y'all asses too for being suckers as we continue on.
Ready to begin working on a transition to the Biden administration. But as Weijia Jiang explains, that's no longer appears to be the case.
As President Trump played golf at his club in Virginia on Sunday, two of the top doctors on the coronavirus task force spoke publicly about the importance of working with the Biden team.
This is not a political issue. This is an issue of public health and saving American lives.
It's almost like passing a baton in a race. You don't want to stop and then give it to somebody. You want to just essentially keep going. And that's what transition is.
President-elect Joe Biden's chief of staff said they need to learn more about implementing a vaccine.
Our experts need to talk to those people as soon as possible so nothing drops in this change of power we're going to have on January 20th.
But the White House said details about a vaccine are already available on the CDC website and said there are no plans for the task force to meet with Biden's team. The West Wing staff appears to be taking cues from the president, who for the first time ever seemed to acknowledge he lost the election, tweeting he won because the election was rigged. But Mr. Trump quickly backpedaled, declaring he wasn't conceding. There is no evidence the election was rigged. I
wanted to add something to that, my royal family, and I know many know. Do you know that sucker has not been to a coronavirus meeting, briefing, or however they do it in 5 months? 5 months. Think about that. So that lets you know how much he cares for America, how much he cares for his base that he live and die for. He don't give a fuck about any of them. He's a type of person, this put out the president part. He don't care about people. He don't care at all. And that's dangerous when somebody has the position that he have and don't have compassion for people, don't have love for country. You know, win or lose, you know, you got people that love their country, or win or lose, they gonna make sure that despite maybe I unquote have lost, but I have so much love for my country. I want to make sure power is transitioned smoothly, you know? And if I was one of his supporters, I would be thoroughly pissed that in a 5-month span, you ain't even faked it. You ain't went to no meeting or nothing else. See, the floodgates gonna come out on this sucker. I mean, and it's gonna be nasty, the things that we gonna find out. And trust and believe, when Biden's team get in power, this is something that they will use to distract us for not doing a motherfucking thing for us. And that is our duty and responsibilities to point out to our folks. This is a distracting that Biden and Harris will use, where you're going to keep us puffed up on him. Oh no, like I said, I got plenty time to tear them a new one. That's why I said I'm patient. I want their asses to get in there, because I'm going to be paying real close attention to that first 100 days. You know, and we're going to break that down. You know, I might have to do a 2-part series, or 3, or whatever it takes. So don't look too soon for me to be doing a whole bunch of stuff on them right now. Okay, I done went on my tangents. Forgive me as we continue on.
The campaign has filed about 20 lawsuits so far, losing nearly all of them. In Pennsylvania on Sunday, the legal team dropped a major portion of its federal lawsuit over mail-in ballots. Even a win in this case would not change the result. Still, President Trump's baseless claims of fraud are fueling his supporters. Mr. Trump rode through the crowds as thousands marched through the streets of Washington, D.C. on Saturday.
We are the majority.
While the protests were largely peaceful, as the night wore on, fights broke out between Trump supporters and counter-protesters. D.C. police made 21 arrests, and 4 police officers were injured while responding to the clashes.
All right, so Weijia Jiang is joining us now. Weijia, I want to start with something that you touched on in your story. You asked White House Deputy Communications Director and Deputy Press Secretary Brian Morgenstern about whether the White House COVID-19 task force has any plans to meet up with Biden's COVID-19 advisory board. What was the response?
So in this inquiry, Anne-Marie, I did include all the quotes from Dr. Fauci and Admiral Brett Giroir, who yesterday spoke out publicly to explain exactly why a smooth transition must include working with the Biden team and with the very health officials who will ultimately replace them. Dr. Fauci said it's like a baton during a race. You don't want to stop the race and then hand over the baton, but you want to have a smooth transition. And so that's why they said they really want to meet with this incoming team. And I also included what the Biden chief of staff said, which really touched on the importance of the vaccine distribution. And so at first, as I mentioned in the piece, the White House officials said that, look, everything that they need to know about vaccines is already on the website. And secondly, he added that respectfully meet about what their plan, aside from devastating and counterproductive lockdowns and an unconstitutional mask mandate, was plagiarized from the Trump administration. And the reason why this was so surprising is because we just heard from officials who said, look, this is not a political issue anymore. This is about saving American lives and public health. And this statement that we got was certainly charged politically as the administration continues to put a barrier between their team and the Biden Biden team, it is no longer a competition. It is about coming together, and that just doesn't seem to be happening.
And so, Ouija, in addition to the coronavirus pandemic that this country is currently facing, there are still geopolitical threats, Iran, North Korea, Russia. There are things happening outside of the United States that directly impact Americans and our interests abroad, but also here at home. And it's so is the position of the Trump administration right now that they're not going to share anything. They're not going to share those national security briefings that president-elects and vice president-elects typically get once they win the election. All that is on hold until when? Inauguration Day?
Well, you know, the Biden team has already signaled that they could challenge this legally if, in fact, this sort of behavior that begins at the top, right, from President Trump's cues continues, because they have to have access to resources and this information that we're talking about, not only with regard to the pandemic, but as you mentioned so rightfully, Vlad, about national security, and they have to be ready to go. There is no lag time. And so we have to wait to see what steps they actually take. But the fact is that, you know, in a few weeks, these votes are going to really count when the Electoral College puts them into place. And the election, by the way, is already over. And so the president's state of denial continues to delay things that are inevitable. And so he can, you know, say what he wants to along with his administration and legal team, but the facts are this transition is happening, whether he likes it or not.
Let me start right there, and she's absolutely right. Now, what I was just thinking, my royal family, is that people that work in the positions that they have working for the federal government, on the level of being politicians, and then you got, you know, different people in different cabinets, or just people that work shoulder to shoulder with the president. And then also you got your congressmen, your senators, and different things like that. And they have their own staff and all of that. Anything that's related to, you're basically a public servant, okay? That's what a lying-ass politician is. And you're supposed to have, again, great love for this country, all right? You know, we know that the military, they don't get in politics. And their duty and responsibility is to protect the country. It doesn't, and it shouldn't not matter at what level of protection it may be, because who's the president? Because you don't like who's the president. Your duty and responsibility ultimately is to protect. So you think about these people that work directly with Trump, and he gives them a wink and a nod, what they supposed to be doing. The question that I would ask them is, what the fuck are you doing? He ain't the president no more. Why are you taking this individually personal? You don't work in the private sector. You ain't even supposed to even do that in the private sector. But anyway, you don't work in the private sector. The very paycheck that you receive and the president receive comes from our taxpayer dollars. And essentially, your lame duck boss, who don't write your check, we still write your check. He can't do it as a two-term president, all right? So he all up in his feelings on a personal level. And you are even more disgraceful, the ones that we can't even see, that you're going to double down like you got some power and we paying you. See, we just fired the president. So you don't, you know, whatever position that you have, you don't want to have nothing to do with Biden and them to transfer that power so we don't have a bump in it at all. So you really need to go sit with yourself or get the fuck on in the few little time that you have left, that you are a public servant. The taxpayers, again, pay you. So ultimately, in the end, what are you trying to accomplish? See, if you ask them that directly, they will not say a word. See, I know how to touch that sweet spot in a sucker to make them feel some kind of way. I'm very good at it. Very good at it. And I thank the royal family immensely for teaching me. And there's many of us that's good at what we do. See, I serve the royal family. I'm only concerned with the royal family at the end of the day. That's all I'm concerned with. So I dismiss some of my personal stuff that y'all might get on me about or might present to me and say, oh, wow. Thank you for that. You know, wow, even if I had good intent, I made the wrong move there. I said the wrong thing there. That's going to affect the royal family. So I don't want to take these gifts and be a narcissist with it. I want to use my individual gifts that y'all gave me way before I got here to serve and appease the royal family. I serve you. I'm talking to some very sacred people. You're so sacred in this last phase that I say often that we are the cream of the crop in this war. So I'm very careful about what I say and do and what I present to the royal family. Because and we should all be doing it because there's many messiahs. There's room for all of us to get on the throne. That keep in mind who you are serving, all right? Now, first and foremost, you're supposed to serve the very ones that are individually in your household that you can collectively touch. And once you can establish that, then the overall royal family, all right? And you got to be mindful how you do that because you got some of our own don't give a damn. And when you see some of them that's like that, you just pull on back and you serve the ones that are receptive of the information that you're giving them. And then you pick up jewels for the gifts that they have. Well, see, we interchange this stuff back and forth. But these fools, they making this shit real easy because they getting all the ego up in it. And we ain't had to throw the first bullet or anything, a grenade or anything. They killing themselves. They don't know what the fuck they serving. All right, I'm on my tangents again. Let's continue on.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you know, Biden and his team are continuing on like the transition is happening. Joe Biden has talked a lot about the need for a second stimulus package. He's spoken to Nancy Pelosi. He's spoken to Chuck Schumer. I'm wondering, considering, you know, Mitch McConnell prior to the or just after he won his re-election bid, talked about how he was ready to get down to work and hammer out another stimulus package. Has anyone from Joe Biden's team spoken to Mitch McConnell about getting this done?
Well, Joe Biden himself said about a week ago that he plans to speak with McConnell, and these two have a long history of working together, of negotiating against one another, but ultimately striking deals on Capitol Hill. So I do think that there is promise ahead if a package is not hammered out before Inauguration Day. And so we know that they have not spoken yet, at least to our knowledge, but the plans are there to do that. And it's interesting because the Senate Majority Leader publicly is not yet acknowledging or recognizing or congratulating President-elect Biden, because he says there will be a time and a place to do that. And I think what you've seen not only from McConnell but other Republicans is really self-awareness about the impact that President Trump has and that Donald Trump will continue to have even after he leaves the White House. So they're really trying to walk a fine line here of giving the president some space to make these declarations, even if they are false, and also moving forward with the teams that they need to. So to answer your question, it does look like, you know, they will be working together to get this aid, this critical aid to Americans, but the timeline, you know, we'll have to wait to see when that happens. If the Trump administration ultimately and Democrats can hash something out before Biden takes over the White House.
You know, we mentioned that the president over the weekend and just this morning tweeted again, "I won the election." During his 60 Minutes interview, former President Barack Obama said, you know, we would never accept one of our kids behaving that way. If one of my daughters pouted and then accused the other side of cheating when they lost, when there was no evidence of it, we would scold them. So you mentioned in your piece that the Trump campaign scrapped a major part of its federal lawsuit challenging Pennsylvania's election results. At this point, it does really seem, if we take our viewers back to the inauguration of President Trump and the lie that Sean Spicer iterated at the podium there about having those numbers of people at the inauguration, which proved not to be true. If you take it back even further, President Trump, when he was still a candidate and before that, was the chief sort of promoter of birtherism, the lie that President Obama was not born in the United States. And now here we are at the end of the Trump administration and the president tweeting, "I won the election." Does anybody in the White House sort of see what is evident to a lot of other people, which is that this has been this is something that has been ongoing in this White House for last 4 years?
Well, I think, Vlad, when you say something that has been ongoing, I think what you're referring to is the president's obsession with numbers. And we have seen that throughout his presidency. The bigger, the better, with regard to crowd sizes, with regard to many things that he has tried to accomplish on his agenda. This is the mentality that the president often has. Ironically, not with the stimulus bill, though. It should be mentioned that he wants a very narrow bill, and it's the Democrats who want something bigger and broader. But in general, bigger is better for President Trump. So it is interesting that you mentioned the crowd size and how we've sort of come full circle, because the White House press secretary said about 1 million people filled the streets over the weekend, which is just not true. And so you know, I think that there's just an acceptance that oftentimes what happens is, because the president likes to be his own messenger in chief, he sort of sets the headline and they have to work around that and try to support that, even if that headline is not accurate. There are ways using semantics to try to appeal to the president, and they've also learned what not to say in order to prevent him from, you know, being displeased. And so, you know, this is just something that I think everyone around him has grown accustomed to, especially after, you know, nearly 4 years here at the White House.
Yeah, it's something Anne-Marie and Anne-Marie, you say this often, that, and you just said it sort of similarly, Ouija, that the president sometimes uses language that leaves room open for interpretation. But tweeting, "I won the election," there is no room for interpretation there. That's just not true.
It's just not true. And, you know, I think yesterday, and we briefly talked about this, the president tweeted he won because the election was rigged. He being Joe Biden, even though he did not mention his opponent by name. And then I think all of a sudden the president realized, oh, wait, did I just say Biden won? He did. And that's why he spent so much time, along with his surrogates, both online and in person, trying to clean up what the president said, even though it was a fact. The fact is that Joe Biden is the president-elect. And so what we've seen since the president acknowledged that was a lot of backpedaling. And the president wants everybody to know that he didn't mean it, that what he meant was Joe Biden won in the eyes of what he says is the fake news media, in the eyes of Democrats, but not in reality. Of course, that is not true.
Weijia Jiang for us.
Yeah, that's also not true, Weijia, because even sort of based on kind of that warped logic between illegal votes and legal votes,
right.
I mean, look at the legal challenges. We can clearly see that there were not any illegal votes, and if there were, they were so minor that it would not have made a difference. So even by the president's own logic, he did not win this election.
Even by his own Department of Homeland Security, that has come out to say that this was the most secure election in U.S. history. And so, this is another example of the president contradicting either his own intelligence community or other agencies. And, he could resolve this if he or his lawyers just presented evidence to support their baseless claims. And that is one thing they have not been able to do.
Weijia Jiang for us at the White House.
All right, my royal family. So we keep hearing more of the same thing, and we know that Trump has some issues that he must deal with once he fully steps down. He is deemed a private citizen. And he could not come up with a big enough lie, antic, a situation where he could be president for life, because he likes those layers that he have around him to protect him. And what I like, and I noticed pretty immediate, was that when I studied about, his background and everything and how he was as a child and, coming on up, that he damn near got away with everything. His father bailed him out financially. And he kept getting his immediate situation gratified. But as he was doing what he was doing, there was damage along the way. And then I often talk about the nature of things. So naturally, because we all have our day of reckoning, naturally, isn't it ironic that it had to happen on the world stage with a narcissist like that? Like I said, he represented very well Esau, very well. And we are seeing the extreme part of Esau and what they will do when they have to deal with their day of reckoning. And then we see other parts of their nature. So he demonstrated pure weakness. Trump ain't about shit. The Caucasoid race ain't never been about shit. It's all based on lies and charades in the backs off of other people. Our royal blood soaks in the streets of America. Truly, our royal blood soaks globally, but we're going to focus on America. And so it makes me think back, and I've said this before, what Big Judah said. I think somebody had approached Big Judah and said, well, why these, why they ain't, getting their feet held to the fire, and, it's time for them, these governors and all these things, it's time for them to feel. And Big Judah said, no. Our Father wants them to see their kingdom die around them. Look at what happened to like Nebuchadnezzar. People always refer back to that I've even been saying, dying is easy. But when you living and you are so-called been on the top based on lies, and you start losing those layers, it is quite frightening, where your folks is looking at you to keep this thing going. They don't care. These suckers don't care who who and what they hurt, just as long as they can keep reaping the benefits in a dead, dying, white supremacist system. And so, as this thing go along, before it fully kick in, Rona show up, which naturally we had to distance ourselves. And the one thing that I know about us folks, we fully understand karma. We don't trust the medical system at all. I don't care, if we got the biggest disagreements in the world, the way we choose to worship in the world, the thing that'll make the royal family come together, you ain't shooting shit up in us. You done fucked over all of us. And now, because I've been doing a lot of research and everything today, and, I would been up extremely early, and, they were saying that this pandemic is worse than the Spanish flu. I could clearly, and many could clearly see, once Biden so-called become the president, they left no other choice to shut it down. But the thing that's going to be shocking to America, you're not going to wipe out Rona. Rona is here to stay. The spirit of Rona. I've been saying for the longest, my royal family, you will submit. I've been saying the longest, my royal family, way before this sucker became president, that we would see people in the streets of America. We would be seeing people globally aimlessly marching for what? And I said, everything that we will see will be in biblical proportions. Now we are actually living these prophecies and feeling it. Be obedient. Remember the 2/3. Demonstrate faith. Keep your house anointed. Deal with your immediate situation. Take heed to what's going on in America. All right? We know what happened to Pharaoh. We know what our father had to do to break Pharaoh down to his knees. So the embodiment of Pharaoh will necessarily be the Caucasoid race. They will do all these reactions and these delusions and playing games with thyself. I listened this morning. They had interviewed this white nurse. And she said the thing that is so shocking to her, she literally sat there and held their hand as they transitioned. There was some that was still in a state of denial that they were dying from COVID-19. Now, I've heard people pass, and before they pass, and they know they're going, and they say, this is real. This is nothing to play with. Rona will be respected. Can you imagine? You're on your sick bed, and you still in a state of, but you feel, you know you're going. You're in that type of denial. That gave me a deep insight. Like I said, I've been learning a lot on how deranged these people or subhumans continue to be. So it goes back to by any means. So that's what they on. And we need to be by any means when it comes to our immediate situation and fully protecting self first and also in your individual household. I ain't fronting, my royal family, and I'm not trying to pump fear. I'm speaking cold, hard facts. I'm going to keep it core. I'm going to keep it raw. So I do thank the new folks here that's understanding the true royal family and true royal. And I pray I don't get one of these damn comments trying to school me about Kamala and Biden. On this channel, we don't support Kamala or Biden. On this channel, we don't vote over here. There might be some, but that's their business. So I want you to understand, you're wasting your time over here. I don't believe in none of them. I truly thank my father, James Alfred Newman Jr., before he crossed over. He taught his only child about this system. And he said to me, Kimberly, everything that I'm teaching you, you can etch it in stone. I thank him. And I thank you, my royal family. So render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love, and I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.